Hi friend, so let's get started. In this tutorial, we will learn about what is CSS selector, importance of this selector in web automation, and the different types of CSS selector, and few more things. So CSS selector, this is again an address of a web element in web page. So like any other selector, it is used to locate a web element in web page. The big thing about here is that we locate now an element on a web page on the basis of its property. Like you see here, if a parachute or if a flight take off from here and it used to go to another place, how it used to locate the other place? It used to locate with its properties, like with axis, like longitude and all those directions things. I'm not that expert in that. I'm not a pilot, but I hope you got that point. Like with the name, it can't go to that place. Like in Google Map, we used to put the name of that place, like that I want to go to this city, so that used to give you the map and then you follow that path. So with the name you can't. So basically text you can't use. That is the main thing I want to highlight here. Like for this element, so here we cannot use the text text property, this one, to locate this element. Here we will have to basically use the property. These are the property of this element, like what is the attribute name is there, the tag name is there, so that we can use to locate an element with CSS selector. So it's an again address, and there are multiple ways to write an CSS selector that we will learn in coming lectures. Importance, it is again as important as xpath or any other CSS selector, any other locator, and it is as important like tires of a car. Like if your your car doesn't have good tires, then it will not run for long, right? It will break down, it will stop just in like single run. So we will have to make sure that we write a good locators, good selectors, good CSS selector in our script. So it is really important for an automation script. Like if you are writing in Cypress, WebDriver IO, or in JS framework where you use only CSS selector, not XPath or any other locator, then in that case you will have to make sure that you write the robust and very stable selector, so that your script lasts for long and you need not to change or fix your selectors again and again, and they don't get changed immediately. Type of CSS selector, actually fundamental concept, there is nothing like this. No, not a type of CSS selector, nothing like that. We used to define it on the basis of our writing pattern. Like sometimes we used to call it like absolute CSS selector because there are indexes, and then we start calling it as a relative CSS selector because we are writing CSS selector with respect to some parent or child, or with respect to, you can say, any other element. So that's where we start calling that, like to convince our way that this is the pattern we are following to write the CSS selector. Same goes for XPath as well. Actually, like there we use the term absolute XPath, relative XPath. So same here, like for CSS selector, you can say that there is an absolute means it defines basically the type is on the basis of the way we write, but actually there is no type. Like this is very important, CSS versus CSS selector. In general, like on a day-to-day basis, while talking or while conveying things between testers and developers, we very frequently say, okay, change the CSS selector, change the CSS, maybe CSS is breaking. But actually for selector, when we say that CSS is not the right term for selectors. CSS is actually the cascading style sheet. I said the full form of CSS, cascading style sheet. This is basically used to design and define the property of this element. Like it is looking at it is showing in red color capital letters, or you can say like here you see when it currently it is blue and when hover it's red. So this is defined through CSS, these designing pattern and the look. But to locate this element, where is this on the page, and then performing some action on that, that is where we write the address, and that is the CSS selector. So here for us to locate the element, right term is CSS selector, not CSS. CSS is wrong term for selectors. CSS is the cascading style sheet which is used to define the means design pattern here, like how these elements will look, what behavior they will change when we'll hover, when we click, or whatever we do. Okay, I hope you understood. So this is the right term, CSS selector. For when we are talking about selectors, locator, then this is the right term. It's not CSS. CSS is different, something different. XPath versus CSS selector. Okay, so this is very common question asked, and people always discuss about it. Like the very first thing before that, XPath and CSS selector both are the address of the web element. It is used to locate the element. Now coming to that difference between, so not going in that definition thing, because XPath comes from XML query and all, and then CSS selector is based on the okay, so basically XPath is like based on XML queries, and CSS selectors are based on the properties of an element, like ID, means we can use the attributes only, attribute values, whatever there is in this DOM available for that particular element or in the DOM. While to write the biggest difference when you will be writing that is that the text you can use to write the XPath, these text, and which is very powerful function in XPath. I personally feel like that's a very huge like one of the very good feature which XPath supports, while CSS selector doesn't support that, is that we can use the text function, and it makes like very easy, because most of the many a times we get the text, but if we have to write the CSS selector, we can't use this. So that's the biggest difference while writing XPath and CSS selector. And of course XPath has a very vast number of functions and easy more flexibility actually there. So yes, but otherwise if we talk about performance thing, yes, CSS selector theoretically is faster than XPath, because when you write XPath, not going into that how this work in system here in engine, but according to the latest browser engines, all are developed in JS. So due to that, like now there is not a big difference in XPath and CSS selector functions, performance. With the naked eyes we cannot figure out whether XPath is faster or CSS selector is faster, but yes, theoretically CSS selector is faster than is better than XPath in performance. So major two difference is like XPath you have more flexibility, you can use the text function, while in CSS selector you cannot use that. XPath doesn't support shadow DOM, CSS selector supports shadow DOM. All those things we will learn in coming lectures. And yeah, so these are some of the key differences between XPath and CSS selector. But if you get easily CSS selector, always prefer CSS selector over XPath. Then in the next lecture we will learn different functions about XPath and how to write that, about CSS selectors and how to write that. Thank you.